Park. Here we go with game 4 of the day.
Well, they're certainly going to need a bit of magic, Des. That much is for sure, based on what we've seen in the first couple of play days so far. Obviously, starting stage 2, is it 0-3? It could well be that they start stage 3. Stage 3, 0-3, Des. It's not been good for them so far.
Stage 3.
It's not been good. I'll just lay it on Big B. I know you love it.
I can go on forever.
It's not been good for them so far. Do I see any immediate improvement coming against Wolves right now? Maybe, but I don't think it really matters. That's the problem. I feel like Playday 1 and Playday 2 G2 were so far away from a performance where they would beat a team like Wolves that even with the improvement, I'm not sure it's going to get them as far as they need to go if Wolves can play as well as they have done. Like you say, Wolves have got a lot of things going in their favour. They've got the start inside. They've got the previous performances. They just feel like they're working fantastically well as a team, as Fresh says. Not really much room for the cheese, for, the pocket strats here on Theme Park. Well organised, planned out strategies that Wolves are going to bring with oodles of teamwork is going to serve them well.
Really interested that the Thatcher has been left up here as well. Normally a pairing you'll see with the Kai ban, which has been taken away. Now for the attackers, very fair chance you do not see Grim being brought out here by Blur. Thank you very much. But Thatcher is available if they do want to fast clear their way through. One thing that will be a staple on this map will likely be a mute on the defensive side. Reason being, there are a lot of bottlenecks. There's a lot of single doorways scattered throughout the map. And I think back to some of the old games we had in EUL. I think Na'Vi versus Temperate is a game from a long time ago now that I still remember, when the attackers just could not get through a single doorway thanks to Mozzie Pest, thanks to mute jammers. They had no information. Everything was very, very blind. Bearing in mind, this was back in the utility meta, so you'll see mute pretty much guaranteed on both defensive sides here.
Heading into round 1 we go then. We're going to be going downstairs to begin with. It's going to be Armory and Throne Room to kick us off. Wolves on the defence, as we said. Nothing too wild. Valkyrie being brought along. I commented on it last play day. I'll comment on it again. We're seeing a lot more of this whereby, we have other popular defender bans, Kaid, Azami, Mira, all coming into the pool. Valkyrie sneaking through more and more, and when she does, she sees some play. It's going to be P4 bringing her along, black eye cameras throughout the interior of the map, and they're going to be feeding a ton of information back in. I'm a little bit concerned, and the reason I mention it specifically is G2, for me, they've been missing some of the finer details over the last couple of weeks, Des, and something like those black eye cams could be critical.
They absolutely could. The information really helps. Normally you'd see a team 6 picking an IQ, but G2 here feel that maybe they've got this one already solved. Interestingly, did have an IQ on side before we came into the actual prep phase itself, and then we saw the change away to other operators. Relying on Alamau here with the switch drones to be the one that does the work, gets rid of those mute jammers on the walls, for example, that's going to be a big part of it. Right now, that's not his focus. He's trying to get himself in here towards Yellow, has got himself safely through Lab, and now he's starting to think about, okay, what can I clear out of this map?
Going to be heading up yellow stairs. If he goes all the way up to the top, he'll find himself a little defender. There's a couple of them knocking about up there on the top floor. Alamau is going to be pushing up here. The challenge is going to come in, but Alamau looks lively. Manages to take down P4. That's the Valkyrie gone, but there is a little bit of a scuffle up on the top floor. Shinka manages to get one, but the immediate trades comes back, and that's 2 for Alamau so far. Now then, Mowgli, he's not going to give up that challenge. He's going to find his man, taking down Virtue, and he gets himself another on the jump out, Des.
That one was far too easy. I mean, Citizen was down outside there. He was absolutely screwed dead to rights. And still, even with a good charge from Alamau at the start, getting those Wolves have dragged it back. But look at just how separated all those fights have been around the map as well. We had that little bit of trading around top Yellow, but at the same time, there was action going on around top Dragon. So teams were kind of creeping and posturing themselves around, and then everything kicked off at once. It's left us in a 3v2 to Wolves. Obviously on the defensive side here, have still got 60 seconds to play with, and I don't think G2 have got rid of a lot of crucial utility. I think this wall might be jammed out, no? In fact, no, it has been taken away. It hasn't, so it's open. Very nice.
They've got Twitch and they've got Thermite. They've got what they need. Even if that utility's there, arguably, they should be able to get it done. Alamau, though, is low health, and now they need to start finding kills. This is a good idea for me from Blur. Get multiple angles opened up. I would not like to see them just trying to push it from barrels. So they're going to mix it up here and make it difficult for Wolves inside of sight. 35 seconds left to go, and Wolves right now just trying to hold on. Blur's going to take some damage, but he manages to dish some out as well. Mowgli now down to 1 bullet. Can't really peek this. He's not going to stop, though. Keeps having a look, but it's Bibu to find Alamau, and right now, it's all up to the thermite of Blur. They know he's pushing from yellow wall. This is not going to be easy. He's got Shinka in behind him. They're just waiting. Look at the crossfire that's established. Surely there is no way that Blur wins this. He's a player that we've said that about over the years, though, and sometimes he will find a way. He's looking to push in. He gets one, but Bibu's there for the immediate trade. Stops the attempt at the 1v3, and that's going to be Wolves taking the first round.
Quite well disciplined play by Wolves as well, starting out with, 3 of them roaming around upon the top floor for the most part. Eventually slipping back in towards site once they'd lost down on numbers, but realising they still had the advantage. And outside of Mowgli getting a little bit of cheeky, just flashing a little bit of elbow out towards Blur, holding their positions and letting the clock run down, forcing G2 to be the ones to take those more unfavourable gunfights. Very smart and disciplined play for G2. Kind of had to make the best of a bad situation from second one there, it felt like, as well. Losing a couple of members early in the round, even with Alamau getting the 2k, really just took away a lot of the potential strength. Like I say, it was good play though, good bit of focus in terms of how things were going on the top floor. It wasn't just Alamau coming up yellow stairs, by the way. There was someone also looking to play from the hatch. There was a drone hopping around there, it's why it kept him guessing. So even with the read onto Alamau, even if he got that kill, there was a fair chance that the trade comes through straight after. And there you go, Citizen was down and finished off quite comfortably.
Interestingly, we've got Wolves going to storage as their second choice site. After Armory Throne, we would usually see defensive teams head up to one of the top floors, either Initiation and Office or Bunk and Daycare. But no, Wolves decide that they want to keep themselves on the bottom floor. One of the dangers of this site is it's one of the few places on Theme Park where vertical play can really be utilised. If you can get inside a cafe and get control, there's a lot of area that can be ripped up. You can see all those floorboards inside a cafe can get ripped up there. They can give you some good angles. There's also the space just by the arcade machines inside of the window as well. So that is something that G2 could take advantage of here. They've got Virtue on the sledge. We know how good he is on that operator. They need to take advantage of that here. Wolves have given them the opportunity to use the verticality and to push them around inside a site. G2, you got to step through that door.
We have seen a game here before, and I forget which two teams it was that played. It may even been in NA or at a major as well, but where players would hunker down basically just on the double doorway of Cafeteria with a shield, a couple of ADSs, and it makes it almost impossible to play around. Alamau, though, has maybe got himself up the backside here. He's half expecting to get himself swung on, but it's simply not going to happen. Looks like they're trying to capitalise on a little bit of chaos here, Tim, as well. They've got rid of 2 players already, and from the back of that, Wolves are now going to have to get themselves downstairs, I imagine. There is 1 player inside of Initiation. That Pulse not really going to be of much effect here. No C4 kills being found. P4 still 1 in back pocket. So Wolves are going to have to scramble and get a little bit creative.
Exactly that. You can see how aggressive they're getting. P4 and Rise both up, and I think that drone might have just missed P4. No, it comes back, and that's what you want to be seeing from G2. If you're a G2 fan, you want that drone spinning around. You want them checking every corner, paying that due diligence much better than we've seen in previous weeks. We've also got a man down and out. Shinka's going to be taken down, and if G2 are quick here, they'll realise that that is site available. Blur could go in and get this diffuser down. P4, he's trying to rotate. He's got himself downstairs, and that's going to drop the diffuser. It's not going to be easy from here for G2, for Wolves, but this is a real opportunity, Des.
Well, it's kind of a nuisance for G2. They've got control of the site, so I have no idea what Blur was doing inside of Blue, to be honest with you. Now, thankfully, his team clean up, but that could have gone very wrong very, very quickly. They get a kill inside of Blue. They sit and hold long angles on that. There's nothing else really to worry about. It then becomes a scramble for G2, who've got site control, to have to go and fight and get Blue as well. So very lucky that they got away with that round closeout.
Yeah, not too sure about the site choice from Wolves. I never mind teams mixing it up and trying to develop new sites, but, you know, we commented on it coming into it. It's a difficult site to hold on to. All the early deaths came in the top floor. The roam clearance was great from G2. We saw at 1 minute 55 left on the clock, Virtue was already swinging the hammer around. It just meant Wolves had no opportunity or option, really, to play inside of site, so they had to try and defend it from distance with the few men that they had left. It just really didn't pan out. So we're going to see them going up to the top floor this time around. Not too much of a surprise. It's going to be Bunk and Daycare. And the reason this is different, if you're thinking, well, you know, G2 have just got the kills up on the top floor. What's the difference here? It's the utility investment. There wasn't a lot of it in the last round to help those players. It was just down to gunfights. Whereas this time, holding on to the top floor, you've got your laser gates, you've got your Kiba barricades, you've got your reinforcements, you've got everything that you should need. ADSs, bandit batteries, all there to try and hunker down.
I got a DM from Fresher. I'm being haunted by that old moment on a miserable Halloween
Not
charity
to do with
match.
Splish, is it?
It was, because I called it blue, because it's blue. And he was like, "Where's blue?" And I was like, "It's blue." What more can I say to you? It's blue. It's also blue.
Simple answer, does.
I'm choosing to try and avoid the word split. It brings back some PTSD.
Yeah,
I don't want to revisit those moments, to be honest.
No,
Honestly, when you've
I'll
got,
see if I
when
can
you've got
mention it 10 or
700 people
15
watching
times.
you and they're all screaming at you as well, your brain doesn't work the way it's meant to.
No. No, I reckon we could get split in 10 or 15 times. We'll see how the match progresses. Doki's going to take out the control hatch. That's going to allow them to drop in and start pushing onto the initiation side. There are two options when pushing this side, or a third combined option. But you can push from either side. You can try and get cafe control and just move in direct to side. Or alternatively, you can come in through this east side, which is what G2 are going to do. They're trying to get themselves established in control. Top Dragon inside of Cash up at the top of your screen. And they're just going to try to sweep across, force defenders back as they go, maybe pick up a kill or two, and then start getting those walls open and pressure inside. They're actually making pretty good progress so far. This is quick moving from G2.
It is, but I'm looking for a backstab here. Who's going to come pushing in through Cafe? Who's going to challenge into Arcade to keep Wolves sweating and checking both directions? Doki is basically walking himself into suicide there as well, just walking through a double door. Players on either side, gives his life up for free. A little bit keen, and that has been a problem that Doki has had for a good while now, is sometimes just getting a little bit too keen, a bit too far ahead of the team, and losing his life in what is already a very poor position, but then also giving it away so early in the round.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think, it's a difficult one for Doki because obviously his job or part of it is go in there, make a play and get some kills. He sees his man, he has a little challenge and he thinks if I can get a peek around here, it's a little bit of siege timing in there that the second man comes and challenge. But at this level, you've got to expect that support is going to be there and it's going to be there quickly. And like you said, Doki losing out. So 5 versus 4 to Wolves now. 55 seconds left to go. G2 just stalled out a little bit. I commented how quickly they'd got in, they'd got control, got themselves up to initiation office. But it just seems to have stopped after that point. We've had a rotation. We've got one now on break room windows, one coming in through Cafe. It's going to be Alamo on the Doki looking to push himself in through there. Oh, sees his man and finds the kill onto Mowgli, but cut down immediately in a trade by Shinka, leaving us now 4v2 as the kills keep raining in for Wolves.
Try and push their way up through yellow here as well. As you can hear, Blur's Candela's singing off, but he gets taken down as well. Citizen, the last one left standing, and we commended G2 for what felt like pretty rapid pace early in the round. Until that point, it's now sort of crumbled away as they've only got 10 seconds left on the clock. Citizen versus 3. Wolves digging in deep, and again, not feeling the need to overpeak this one, playing it so disciplined, will find themselves the third round in this game and take us up to 2-1.
There we go. You really saw the difference. It was interesting as well. Coming into it, obviously, I commented on the fact Wolves had failed to hold on to top floor in the previous round. But this time, when the site was up there, when they had that utility to play in behind, they were able to sort of force G2's hand, really, to make them, take those risks, like Doki early in the round, like Alamo having to just push in as a spearhead and try and get something going. And it just left them in negative positions. And ultimately, Wolves were able to take full advantage of that. So heading into round 4, we're going to have Wolves, interestingly, going back to Armory and Throne. It was a site that they won well, but it does show that they're not avoiding, but choosing not to go to initiation office as that second top floor site. It's basically a mirror image of Bunk and Daycare in the way that you hold it. There's slightly more room for the attackers to push you on both sides, because where Bunk and Daycare is really close over to that side of the map, there's not much workable space to the west of it. To the east of Initiation Office, there is plenty to go at with Top Dragon and Control. So instead of going up there, they're going to head themselves back down to Armory and Throne. Now, G2 last time lost a couple of players on the roam up on the top floor, trying to get those players taken down, and Wolves just retired back to site. So G2, it needs to be more of a round 2 top floor clearance than it does a round 1 top floor clearance.
You've talked us a mile away from it, but I do want to come back to last round for a quick second. One of the big sticking points was the lack of any hard breach for G2 as well. If you're trying to force your way in from the east side, but your only entry point is through a double wall because office walls are reinforced off, initiation walls are reinforced off, what do? They've really screwed themselves and put themselves into a bit of a corner there. So I want to see that adaptation being considered next time round. Let's make sure we've got hard breach, and if we do want to push in from Dragon side across, we have a way to open walls. At least in this round, though, unsurprisingly, they do have that hard breach on side. We saw Blur doing good work with it last time round when him and Alamar was stuck in a 2 versus 3, opening up both maintenance wall, in fact, no, it was barrels wall, sorry, and also yellow wall at the same time. Couldn't get a round close out of it, and it did take a bit of time, but they did get there in the very end. The big thing for G2 in this round for me is staying alive a little bit longer. They did lose members early on. They were down to just 3. They lost Citizen outside cash, and already that started here. No! I say it, and they lose 3, Tim! There's just 2 left already. It's Blur and Citizen, and even Citizen for a second didn't look to be long for this world, but they've been absolutely decimated.
I was just about, Des, to comment on G2's drone economy. They had 7 drones left. So I'm thinking, yeah, they're going to have plenty of information here. They're going to know what's going on ahead of them. But it really didn't look like that was the case. We didn't see the kills firsthand, but as we look back at that, maybe it was just a bold play coming in from Wolves. But G2, they've got to be more prepared for that. They can't be losing 3 players in 3 seconds. They've got 7 drones on board. They've got the information. They should really know what they're going into.
They should. And this is where the change comes in, really. Lab storage they had good success on last time round, outside of the little blip where Blur died in blue. And when he died inside there, that diffuser went down, as we commented on. They were fortunate, despite being in the 2 versus 4, the 4 versus 2, sorry, to be able to get the close out regardless. But that could have been a very hairy situation. So a little bit more desperation. Just in case you're wondering, I did say blue really emphasised there because I was looking at fresh while I said it. I really want to see more focus in this round here from G2 as well. More composure and control about it. Let's not see ourselves dying in silly places. You did it so well last time. Rinse, repeat, minus the little mistake, and this will be a beautiful round for them.
That's it. We're certainly looking at Wolves this time for the adaptation. You know, what's gonna change? The answer is they need to keep those players on the top floor alive for longer. They're not putting too much utility up there again, so it is going to be another one of those situations where they're up there pretty much on their gun skill, trying to keep themselves in the game. We've got rotations into Throne. That's going to allow them to move through Split, Des, to get back to site potentially for those off-site sort of, we'll call them link players. They're going to be in there trying to hold a bit of ground to allow those top floor players to have a safe route back to site. That's going to be, anybody that's playing in and around Throne. At the minute, it looks like it's going to be the Pulse of Rise for the time being, but not a heavy site presence here from Wolves. I mean, they need to be careful. You know, we've spoken about G2 and cheese strategies. There's a potential opportunity for them to just get themselves into site.
Yeah, I'm not really seeing much of that cheese, have we? It's like having crackers and cheese, but minus the cheese. It's quite bland and a little bit dry, to be honest with you, so far. Tim, outside of the 1 round we've seen go pretty well. Otherwise, they've just been chewed up and spat out by Wolves for the most part. Here, potentially moving their way back through, feeling they've already had that bit of a challenge out towards Gong's side. Rise moving his way back underneath. Last time around, they did lose a couple of members, mind you, so he wasn't really all that effective, or didn't have the chance to be, because his team had sort of collapsed on the upstairs. They couldn't hold G2 in place and look for those C4 plays from below. So here, maybe it's more just an information game, just feeding across exactly where the push has come from, but I'm pretty confident he'll have just seen 2 plays coming through. Mowgli almost losing his life. This time around, Zadoki was poking his head in through vaults.
Top floor again. Wolves have got to do a better job of holding on to this. If they want to play storage as their second site, this has to become bread and butter for them. It's as simple as that. They can't be losing lives up there. They can't be finding themselves 3 versus 5. At the minute, they've managed to burn half of the round, so they've lasted longer than last time. Mowgli with a speed peak absolutely comes screaming round the corner and shuts down Virtue, and that is a great start. That's making the most of the 10 HP he has left.
Most of that screaming being done by the Banshee, of course. That audio cue just saying to him, swing now, as someone is inside the doorway. Doesn't even have to move his crosshair really anywhere, because you know exactly where that player is going to be as long as that Banshee is wailing away. So, down to a 4v4. The pulse has been taken out. That means the eyes for Wolves have been removed here. Only what the 4 players themselves can see in their proximity are really going to help them, or potentially the bulletproof camera, which Rise should no doubt be flicking through here as he also goes through some of the default cams that are still up across the map.
Virtue was a big kill as well, of course, the sledge, so that's going to reduce that verticality that I commented on. This is
and
the one site that you can really use it. Mowgli does get taken out with that last 10 HP. I'm surprised they lasted as long as he did, though. He's going to be straight onto the cams. You can see him and Rise. They're on different cams, just trying to feed information back in.
Yes, he
30
does.
seconds left to go. Sees his man, surely. Bibu knows, though. Bibu knows he's going to come round for the challenge. He sees him and gets the kill onto Alamau. Low health, though. I'm going to be traded out by Citizen 3v2. 20 seconds left to go. G2 G2 need to get themselves inside of sight here. Citizen pushing, and what a kill. This could be the ace from him. He's on 4 at the minute, Des. He's going to push his way in, but Blur has something to say. He's going to snatch it away, but Citizen won't care. That's the round to G2 again, and we might be looking at that site choice from Wolves come the end of this game.
May well be, may well be. Clearly something that they're not too keen on in terms of playing Initiation and Office. Happy to go out towards Bunk and Daycare instead, which is where I imagine will fall, than winning a couple of defensive rounds because they feel that that will be something they can do quite naturally.
Absolutely, it's going to be a big round. This is one of those decisive rounds potentially, or it at least starts locking you into thoughts of overtime. You know, if nothing else, going forward, if you're on the side of Wolves, you start feeling like you've maybe got that little bit of a security net there. But we go on. It's going to be Bunk and Daycare again. Wolves choosing not to double down in storage, and like you say, if G2 get a 3-3 split here. This is where, when I say after the last round, we might be coming back looking at those site choices in more depth. You know, that could well be the case if G2 come away with a 3-3, 2 of which have been won down in storage. We're going to be up to the top floor once again, though, for Wolves. Coming into the action phase, we've got Blur on the Thermite this time around. We did comment, you said last time, Des, the lack of hard breach had potentially just hurt them a little bit. Ooh, there's the switch. They're going to have a lack of hard breach once again.
Okay. If they feel they've got a plan here, if they come attacking in from the west side, it's worth raising. Fine. I haven't got a big issue with that. If they try and push in on arcade side, they try and get themselves on break window, for example, it's not such a big deal. If they are trying to push the majority of their players in through the east and in through Dragon, that's when it starts to sting a little bit. But they have got 3 players looking to set themselves up on the east side here. They have got the hard breach gadgets in the back pocket of Alamau, so they've got options. Is a hard breach gadget really going to be enough? Probably no, but it's something at the very least, right?
It gets them a line of sight. You know, yes, you can vault through there, but that's always going to be dangerous unless you've got a reasonable man advantage. You know, I guess you could use 2 of them. You know, you could stack them, use 2 and get that bigger opening if you want it. Really, you know, at this sort of level of play, ideally, you want to be able to walk through a breach. You don't necessarily want to be having to go through that vault animation. Peepoo getting aggressive on the break room rappel there. Knows that Alamau is in a position upside down. Going to make a slight challenge there. Just give him something to think about, but he's not going to tickle him in the slightest.
I think based on the fact you can see that the break room wall is electrified here, it's saying to you they're expecting someone to bring a long range hard breach to get through the wall, but no one's doing it. It's a 1-for-1 already across the map though between the 2 sides. Keyman and Alamau with 2 of those Candelas is still on side. Doki gets a second. He's walked his way through the center of sight and is looking to do work. G2 have found the kills they need. They get the 3-3. And like you said about lab storage, maybe being the rounds that we talk about, Tim, I think that round 6 could prove to be monumental for G2.
Pivotal is how I would potentially describe that. Not just in the score that it gives them, but in the performance in taking it. You know, very quickly in the round there, G2 were surrounding sight. It was Alamau after he got in on the rappel. We saw a kill go either way. Bibu opened things up. P4 onto Citizen opened us up, and then we had the trade come back in. And all of a sudden, you've got Alamau walking down arcade mezzanine. You've got, you know, Doki finding a play onto arcade stairs. You've got just kills going all over. Alamau Virtue get 1 apiece, and G2 were just swarming all over that site. They were giving Wolves absolutely nothing, but G2 need to be careful here. They can't assume that they're going to win now that they're on the defense. Wolves, we've said this before, work fantastically well as a team, which goes so far on defense, but for me, it gives you that extra yard on attack particularly.
Well, it's the kind of stuff the demo was calling for from G2 in that first half, was essentially saying, look, get confident, get aggressive, don't sit and be stalled, don't be static like gargoyles. Let's see you making some plays. And although not every round went their way, I still think getting 3 attacks on this map, even in the current meta, is really quite significant. Now for Wolves, my only concern is for G2. Wolves are one of our best attacking teams that we have in EUL, at least by style. I haven't got the numbers. That's a Fresh thing. Fresh loves his numbers. But looking at like Rogue and Wolves, to me, they are the 2 real great examples we've got of how to attack in EUL. Where Rogue are a little more structured, they kind of build it up as a team. Wolves will kind of, ironically, act like Wolves. They'll circle, they'll get themselves ready, then they'll all pounce at once and look to overwhelm their opposition. All of them flooding into sight, 3, 4 players at once. And it's a really beautiful strategy to watch come together. If G2 want to disrupt that, they've got to get early kills. Catch out onto these more fragmented members of Wolves that are scattered around the map, looking to push it from several different directions. Like clocking now, there's 3 or 4 angles they're looking to push. They're not really looking to play for trades off each other yet. That is G2's best time, but it requires a lot of confidence in the gunfights to get those players shut down in 1v1s.
Mowgli, he's going to get himself into the top floor. First man, there's going to be a ping, and it's an easy kill. Can he get himself a second? No. Going to be shut down, and there we go. Trade for trade for trade. We find ourselves now in a 3v3 as we have 4 quick kills coming in, and this is turning into an absolute brawl at this point. Citizen on the alibi is always a dangerous thing. He's still out in the map. Only slightly, though. He's got himself a little bit closer back to site. He can head back in if the call comes, but for the time being, he's going to stay out there a little bit loosey-goosey, just getting himself aggressive.
Keeping himself busy. The damage that he took, by the way, was earlier on in the prep phase where he took a bit of damage inside of maintenance from, I believe it was actually the Izami of Alamau, but that's not really to be concerned with. It's still a significant amount of HP that he's sat on in terms of 75, but it could mean a couple of bullets might be the difference between life and death here. Shinka especially, I'm looking at with that Mark 14 and thinking that's a 2-tap now rather than a 3. It could be lights out for Citizen.
He's going to have to be careful where and when that challenge comes. Like I say, for the time being, he's playing very closely to site here. I think he just wants his opportunity, but the ping is coming in, and Rise is sat on the hatch. He's waiting, but the problem is, of course, for the attackers, they can't wait forever. He's thinking about potentially putting that firebolt down there to try and do a little bit of damage, but also prevent Citizen being able to re-enter site, and that might just be at the time when the push finally comes for the execution. 45 seconds left to go, and Wolves are just posturing at the minute, looking to get themselves into position. Shinka finds Alamau, so that's 1 down inside of sight. They know exactly where they're going. A bit wild from Shinka, but he gets the next. Rise finishes the man off on Citizen, and that is going to be Wolves taking the opening attack, and it might just be panic stations for a G2 side that thought G2 might do better on defense.
I just love the immediate thought process there at the very end as well. It's like, cool, we killed the player on site. We're not going to all rush into site and get a plant down and set up positions. No, we turn towards the angle where we know Citizen was last seen. Even if the smoke is in place, it's not impenetrable. Players can still run through it, and they're the kind of plays you can make that can surprise people. So just a really nice read there at the end to go, right, you've got sight, we know no one is there, I'm watching this door straight away. A very kind of small decision, very split-second made decision as well, but one that was really smart and ultimately closed that round out there rather than it getting a little bit too messy.
Round number 8 then, we're going to head up to the top floor. G2, pretty much, I suppose, in line with, you know, with questions I raised about lab storage being a secondary choice. They're not going to go there. They're going to head themselves as a second choice up to the top floor. It's going to be bunk and daycare. Still not seeing any initiation office played as of yet. As I say, out of the 2 top floor sites, I do think it is the more difficult to hold on to because you are in more of a pinch. You will get teams on both sides of you a lot more easily. Now, one to watch. I'm just keeping a close eye on that Oryx. We've got Alamau on the Oryx. If he gets himself the hatches open, which it looks like they are, there's a good opportunity on Theme Park. There's 3 staircases and lots of chances to get up and down between floors and stay mobile.
I think fundamentally the reason why we're avoiding initiation office is many teams probably have the read and they're right in thinking so. The office is quite penned in, it's quite closed. A number of times we've seen teams kind of have to lock themselves inside a vault, especially in APAC North. I can think of Sandbox a few times. Just being locked inside a vault with no way out, you have to reinforce up pretty much every wall to keep yourself safe. It's a bit of a death box if you're the defenders. So for attackers that are coming in with a lot of utility, they can hit you pretty hard and fast, whereas over here towards the west, inside of Bunk and Daycare, it's a lot more open. You can play around Arcade. You can look to play down Yellow Stairs a little bit, like these guys have done with things like Barbed Wire. You can just be a lot more mobile and keep on challenging in more areas. It gives you more map control, whereas Initiation Office is a little bit too closed in.
G2 are being really aggressive here. We saw the Gemini clone just about to come in from Mowgli on Cafe Door, and it was just removed immediately as soon as it stepped in. And that just really sends a message to Wolves here that they're not going to get an inch inside of this map easily. You know, the challenges are going to be right up there on the windows. We've just got the Warden of Virtue as well, trying to find the Nitro onto the repelling players on break window. Not going to have any joy, but going to keep himself in the mix. He's played the Warden because he's aware that the Ying may come along. It was something G2 tried, but it's not going to be the case here from Wolves. 1 minute 30, and they're not quite established yet.
don't think he knows that Bibu's got inside here as well. I think maybe it was a sneaking suspicion, but he's more watching towards the window. No, he has no clue. In fact, the swing comes in, and Virtue gets his man far too easy. Not sure how he had the read on that one, but that's a beautiful entry to find off as well. Now, for that, Wolves have now lost all their control inside Break Room. They've got one man on windows, and they're going to have to force something, but look at those flashing health bars of G2. There's 3 players on 1 bullet, but they're still finding the kills, and Citizen finds the final 2. G2 bring things all square once again.
Much better from G2 on the defense of round 8 rather than round 7. They just didn't let Wolves get a toe inside of the building, realistically. Every time they tried to prod, to press anyway, G2 were right up in their faces, there for the challenge and winning gunfights, particularly importantly. Virtue on that swing to Bibu was really not just important in terms of being the opening kill, but as you said, as you know, that was the beachhead that Wolves had found themselves. They were in break, they were ready. If Bibu gets that kill onto Virtue, you've got a very different situation, because you've more than likely got a second man who's going to come and join him immediately inside a break room, and then you can't push back onto the rotation anymore, because just like Alamo did when G2 attacked that site, whoever comes in second is likely going straight through that rotate and trying to take control of Arcade Mezzanine to force the defenders to play solely inside a site, and then we've got a completely different situation. So really key kill coming in from Virtue at the beginning.
Absolutely. Well, let's see how this round starts out. Then if G2 again want to be looking to try and challenge somewhat earlier into the round. That one quite interesting, because for the most part, it was all around the site itself where the fighting came in. I've commented a couple of times. For G2, it's about contesting walls early on. Don't give them that perfect execution they're looking for, the thing they're so good at and so well renowned for, too, at that. Looks already to be the case here, as they are getting a couple of drones off from the upstairs now that they've got these caught out thanks to the Mozzie Pest scattered around the map, and have got themselves a good few setups on the upstairs. I love this one inside of Gong as well. Fair chance. Attackers are never going to look to their right in that bottom corner. I know for sure I've never have when I've walked in through here.
Okay, as you said, yeah, likely to sit in place, likely to be active. Just depends whether Wolves choose to push in through that side or not. At the minute, they're going to be moving over. P4 is going to be taking out the hatches on the rooftop, so it's going to be about that top floor clearance to begin with, because of course G2 are holding on to the ground floor site of Throne. Again, Wolves were able to win it out last time, but G2 may just be riding a little bit of extra confidence after that last round, because it was a pretty clinical defense from them. So the top floor clearance continues from Wolves here. They still haven't got themselves established inside of the building yet. It's slow progress from them. We're a minute in. Nobody is in there yet. And G2, they've not been forced anywhere back.
Doki Silk can challenge inside a break as well, unsurprisingly. Don't want to give free entry into the building wherever you can help it. With a lot of windows to repel on, or just like this vault inside, you're locked into the animation. Doki with a fantastic read and a little 360 to celebrate as well, collecting drones as he goes along. And surely at this point Wolves know that he's stuck up here. They know there's no rotate through. The only way he gets out is by killing all of them or vaulting over the arcade balcony and getting himself down around barrels and potentially back in towards site. So Wolves have now got decisions to make. We're 90 seconds into the round. They're down a man. They know Doki's still got to be dealt with. Choices. They've got to choose what the focus is going to be.
Yep, big problem here, having lost Mowgli. He's the one who you're looking in most situations to go in and have those answers, particularly this time the Rise manager steps up and find Blur. But again, G2 have got answers, Des, and that's what I'm liking from them in the last couple of rounds. Every time Wolves make a step, G2 have already sort of countered it. They're already dancing around it. They're already lining up that reverse, that sucker punch, that alternative option to come back at them with, and it's just working so fantastically well at the minute. Always covering each other, always backing each other up. Now then, Bibu is going to open the hatch up, so that's going to give a little bit of phantom pressure onto Split. Nobody's going to stay on top of that hatch for the time being. It looks like Shinka might just be creeping back to have a little look through there, but I don't think they're going to get too much joy. At the minute, it's about getting this wall open. That's one failure. If there's another impact nade in hand, which there is, it could be a second.
They get away with that denial as well, maybe not. It's a little bit too low for them and can't get away with it, which means they've got a straight line in towards site. Bibu finds one, but now they've got to find the players on site. There are 15 seconds left, and Wolves have got to make this work perfectly. There's one. Ooh, the second one comes out for a swing, though. It's Alamau to bring him down. He's holding place. Finds his final 2 kills, and G2 again get the closeout after a fantastic roam. Coming out of Doki, I'll give it to him. Planted his feet for the longest time, but when he felt it was getting a bit too hot in the kitchen, vaulted over the balcony and found a C4 kill from below, playing with absolute confidence, and Wolves, uncharacteristically, a little bit slow.
looking a little bit rattled, and that's something you've got to be able to do in Siege. When one of your teammates dies, you want somebody in a position to play for that kill, to play for that trade, and G2 are doing it fantastically. Whether it's always the player from Wolves that has got the kill or not is irrelevant. It's about that man count. It's about winning by attrition, and they're doing it brilliantly right now.
Well, let's see if they can continue this one up for G2. It is looking like that steady approach towards success. 5 and 4. We said after that 5th round timeout, it's because they know that 6th attacking round means everything. If they'd lost that one, we'd be looking the way at things right now. It'd be 5-4 to Wolves, and suddenly you start getting a bit nervous that for Wolves, one more attack in the last 3 would be enough to send us through to, at the very least, overtime, where admittedly for G2, they'd probably have the favourable side. They'd start on the defence, I've got zero doubt. Be very alarmed if they'd chosen to start on the attacking side. So let's see how things shape up from this point forwards. If Wolves can fight their way back, because they need to win 2 of the next 3 rounds, and they are on the attack, feels like quite a tall order.
It really does. You know, for me, this is a pivotal round now. Like you say, you know, you're staring down the barrel of overtime if you don't get this one. And Wolves, like I say, 3 out of 4 lost in the last 4 rounds. They're going to be starting to feel pretty beat up. So this is a big one. It might just... For me, it might just be a big knock to the confidence of G2 as well. They've had a good spell. They've had a struggle of a start to EUL again, and they're thinking, let's not go 3 weeks like we did last time. Let's at least get, you know, the win in the 3rd week this time, and then we can start that climb back towards a major spot. You know, let's do everything we can. Let's start it early. But if Wolves level this up and it goes 5-5, maybe you start thinking, ooh, can we get it over the line? Maybe that mental game comes into play again. For now, Wolves are focusing on that top floor. They're not really too worried about what's going on underneath. Probably right not to. There's not much action down there from G2 at the minute. It's more sort of a spread horizontal defense here. They've pushed out into break room, into bunk, into daycare. Just again, doing what they've done previously. I've commented on it already, making it difficult for Wolves to get inside of the building.
I just love the chaos it sows when our two teams who are top of the last stage in stage 2, Wolves and Rogue. Rogue have already lost. Wolves are on the way there. It just starts to show how open that this EUL stage could end up being. We might have some surprises coming into the major. No surprises to start things off, though. It's Mowgli with a 2K. Fine Citizen, who himself has had some massive rounds, sat at 10 and 6. That's a great way to take out 2 of the sharper players this game. In fact, the 2 top fraggers for G2 get shut down by a C4 off the backside before Rise equalises onto Virtue. 4v2 for Wolves. It feels like they've done it in this round, Tim.
Exactly what Wolves needed, Des. Exactly what they needed. And that was the 2K opener from Mowgli. I've said that G2 have had the answers. They've had the trades every time they've not allowed Wolves to get an advantage. Wolves take a timeout. They come back in. Mowgli comes in with a big 2K. No answers from G2. And you can see what it did to Wolves. It was like a spark in a powder keg. It was like, right, let's just go and get those kills now. There's 3 of them left. Let's find them. And what, 15 seconds later, the round's done and dusted. Wolves have got themselves level again. It's 5-5. Whoever wins this round guarantees themselves overtime. So round 11, always a big one if we find ourselves at 5-5. Wolves come in with a little bit of something behind them. They're going to be attacking onto Bunk and Daycare. The last time we saw this was round 8. It was a G2 win. It's not going to be easy for them.
No. Well, let's see if Wolves can have another breakneck round and suddenly it's G2 under pressure, or if G2 can take us up to 6 and 5. Either way, Tim, you get Seal 12, and that's something I know that you normally love saying, but I'm taking that one away from you. Did you hear M in the last game when they got to the end of round 12? She was like, "We're going to overtime, Des," and I was like, "That's a Tim."
M can say that whenever she likes.
I mean, at this point, so I
might start licensing it out. We could do it as like, you know, crossovers. Like, you know, casters can use each other's lines. That might be quite a good one.
Well, the thing is, Hap keeps on using "thank you very much, Milos." So I'm like, well, that's going to start getting royalty charges against it real soon as well.
Yeah, exactly that. Well, what I'm just going to do it on more of like a quid pro quo basis. So I'll have a listen through M's unbelievable lyrical playbook, and I'm just going to lift a couple of classics out of that.
Get domed. Oh, that's so frustrating. The best moment is when you go to throw the nade like that and there's a teammate behind you and they die to it. That just makes it 10 times better. In terms of comedy value, not so much for your teammate who is clearly frustrated as all hell.
not ideal. Blur picking up P4 to kick things off. Wolves on the back foot. G2 potentially giving themselves that opportunity to guarantee overtime. There's a bit of work for them to be done, but honestly, Bunk and Daycare, I think they're going to be looking pretty good up here. They were fantastic last time around.
Cheeky.
Look how Virtue. This is smart from Virtue. Not taking the Selma out. No! What happens there?
He thought he was in melee range, so went for the knife, but was just too far. Gives away a freebie, and really, that should be question marks in the chat. That should have been question marks in all chat, boys. I appreciate the intent, but the execution, the landing, nah.
Definitely gets a 1 for the landing, doesn't he? You know, like when they do diving and you get marked on like different aspects of the dive. Yeah, like how big your splash is, your form through the dive, difficulty of the maneuver. I'm sorry, Virtue, you're hitting a 1 for your landing.
Virtue,
there.
my man, learn from your fellow Aussie. Have a word with Mag. Ask his brother for a few tips, and you can stick that landing next time. It's Mowgli trying to do some damage in through Cafe, but just as he goes for it, he saw the Aruni laser gate being reactivated here. Now burnt out by the Gemini, and they can start their push on the way back through. But for now, at least, Alamal's going to say hasn't been forced to move, but forgetting about a nade in the back pocket of the Ana can be lethal. Shield gone, player gone.
Alamo's going to wish that he'd moved at that point, getting absolutely vaporized by that nade, leaving Wolves in a swing around. How many times have we seen this, Des? It's one of Fresh's favourite points about Wolves is it doesn't always matter if they're at a man disadvantage. Somehow they still find the opportunities to corner people and to put them under pressure and in a disadvantage and to turn it around. And that's exactly what they've done now. If Doki gets spotted out through here, it's going to be an easy wall bang. But no, Bibu, he has to go for the melee. And it's an easy pickup for Doki. And once again, this round has turned on its head, Des.
It's just 2 kills, swing it like that. 3v2, bound to a 2v2. And it feels for the most part like site control is actually there for Wolves. But Tim, the clock is not. It becomes the 6th man for G2. But they've managed to find a kill. It's Blur down on the decks. And it's just Doki left standing. Had a wonderful game so far. But he's got to win his one here first. Can he see the man? He sees the head and finds the shot. But the plant is stuck. How close can you get? That was down to microseconds. But Doki goes big. A 3k in the round will get the defuse. And G2 bring us to match points.
What a play. 2 wonderful headshots coming in from Doki there. Truly the flying Scotsman on that play. Managed to get himself Bibu as well. So it was a minimum of 3 kills in the round. He has just grabbed a hold of this game for G2 and guaranteed them overtime.
The clutch factor on this team terrifies me sometimes. Think about Citizens 4K that he wore. We've had that from Doki just now. And the thing is, back in stage 2, I kind of criticised them for this. I said the fact that you're relying on players to... Because you can't say, right, this next round, Citizen, you're going to clutch, you're going to get a 4K, you're going to win us the round. You can't predict those things, which is why it feels like it's out of your control. Now, it's fantastic that you've got players that can do that, but it really concerns me moving forwards if you don't have a really solid structure around it, things can bite you. This is how, like, Rogue almost went on to win the major thinking about it. They did have clutch rounds, but even the rounds when they weren't clutching out or one player was going massive, they still had some fantastic attacking rounds that made them look absolutely lethal enough that they could win a major. So for G2, they've kind of got half the picture there. If the rest can build up around it, they could be a real top team, but we've got to see that strength around it. And winning here, getting all 3 points, sends a big statement about their intent for the rest of the stage.
Who did you predict for this one out of interest?
I predicted, you predicted G2, didn't you?
No, I did not.
Oh, I predicted Wolves.
I'm a bit gutted because I was the only one who predicted MNM in the last matchup. I'm going to get that one in there. It was inevitable.
Tim, I already wrote you a lovely response on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen it.
I did see it. There wasn't too many letters in it.
No.
It was a quick one to read.
That's a good thing. Tomorrow's Tuesday, isn't it?
I was staring down the barrel of 100% there, and now G2 come in after 2 losses. I did this all last stage. I just could not predict games against G2 sometimes. It was such a nightmare, but they are doing fantastically well. Maybe going to lock this down. The big bonus for them, they've got Throne as well. It's a site that they've played well so far.
So really, Wolves are the ones here you're looking at and saying, okay, then G2 have shown what they've got. Wolves, what have you got up your sleeves? They've got the Amaru on P4. Not 100% sure on the use case or the intent behind that one, unless it's a rapid take of break room. We've seen the wars going on for control of this room between both teams across both halves really as well, but G2 it feels have been more successful in keeping Wolves away than maybe Wolves were against their counterparts back in the first half.
Virtue's going to be keeping himself over at top Dragon. The Dokkaebi call does come in, but I don't think anybody's really in a position to hear it. Blur manages to get himself 2 drones taken down. There's an opportunity here for him to keep fighting. He hits the deck, he goes pro, he finds his man, and that's a beautiful play from Blur to get the opener. He's looking for seconds. He's going in for afters, Des.
And Rise is there for the support here now, bringing down Citizen. So now it's okay in a position where things have balanced out, but Blur is still in a fantastic position. I admire Wolves for taking a real square room that's so enclosed and saying, yeah, we want control of that. Let's go and fight for it. But at the end, it's kind of even things out at one apiece. That probably favors G2 here because you've got that early kill onto an attacker. You've taken a couple of nades offline as well that were in the back pocket of Mowgli. What Citizen lost? Probably a C4, but outside of that, you're not going to feel too beat up.
Well, that's it. They've got no clearance of utility anymore, haven't Wolves? You know, beyond going in and actually shooting gadgetry, it's going to be very difficult if there is anything that they need to deal with. That said, you've got no mute on side, you've got no wall denial or anything, so that should still be doable for them. But Blur has managed to get himself back to site. What a round from Blur. Big opener, gets himself back to site. Yes, he's low health, but it doesn't really matter at this point. All he is an extra body. Virtue, I said he'd managed to keep himself away, Des. There was nobody to hear the Dokkaebi call when it came in. He just left it ringing off the hook, and he goes in and takes his man down.
G2 have done such a good job at bringing down the drones from Wolves as well, leaving them blind, leaving them face-checking, and now Bibi realises, I can't get in. There's his army everywhere. Rise finds one, but they've got 15 seconds. It's like how it started back in round 1, Tim, when Blur was stuck outside this wall. It's a similar story. And G2 will bring down Wolves, claim the 3 points themselves, but what a thriller that game has been.
I'm sure we're going to have a very happy demo when we get back into the studio because
I'm
G2,
gonna get on mute.
I won't say G2 were night and day different, but what I will say is there was improvement from them. Now, we would expect to see it, given they were on Theme Park. We know that it's a map that they like, but still, you've got to get the job done, and they've taken 3 points